Hi, my name's Lynn O'Shaughnessy of thecollegesolution.com, and I have with me today Jane Horowitz of morethanAresume.com. She's a national expert on how to launch students into careers. So today what I want to talk to her about is this big issue of college majors. I know that students feel a lot of students feel like they have to have the right major. Parents are stressed, especially if students pick a major that they think, oh my gosh, there's no hope. This child is never going to have a good career. And so what I want to talk to Jane today about that perception, and also talk about skills, because I think Jane's going to say skills are very important regardless of what major you pick. So Jane, if you wanted to weigh in there about how important are majors, and then talk about skills and how important those are.
For me, in the way that I coach my clients, it's more about skills than it is their major. When you think about employers, they're not hiring college students. They're hiring new young professionals with skills. And so that's the way I would prefer that my clients think about it. Now, there are some careers where your major is extremely important. You will not be an engineer without an engineering degree.
Or a nurse.
Or a nurse without, the biology and the
Right.
sciences and things like that. And that's the way that it is. But if you think about, I'm interested in being, a producer, or I'm interested in the entertainment field, what skills will I need in order to do that? So understanding good storytelling might be one of those skills. Where do you get that? You might get that as an English major. Or you might say, I want to be on the production side. Where am I going to get that? Still, good storytelling is going to be an important part of being in a post-production a studio or things like that. So think about, I have an interest here. What skills will I need in order to perform well in that job? So for me, it's really about skills. And there are so many really wonderful examples of the philosophy major who's a CEO, of one of my clients who was an art history major and is now pre-med. So it's finding what you're interested in, pursuing that, but also understanding that as a philosophy major, you're developing critical skills.
Right, critical thinking.
Critical thinking. As a sociologist, you're learning how to do primary research, ethnomethodology, diving into people's behaviors. Where does that apply? Advertising, great place. Public relations, another great place for that. So it's really about what you're learning in that skill, and then how do you apply that, and how do you talk about that to employers?
Right.
So, this fascination with STEM.
Right, which is huge. Everyone feels like my kid has to be in STEM.
Right. I would have flunked out of college.
Well, I would have too. I was not a STEM kind of person.
No, not a STEM person at all.
Not at all.
So if your child is not, doesn't have that proclivity to be a STEM major, why would they ever want to do that?
Right. And the dropout rate, if you're in these STEMs, and I've seen kids who've done it, I want to make more money, and then they wash out, and there's a high washout rate for STEMs because you need to be a certain kind of person.
Right. When Google first got started, their first employees were not coders. They were people who had library science degrees. Because if you think about what Google is, it's a search engine. What do you learn when you're in library science? It's how to search. So that's who they hired. Those are the people who developed the idea of what is search and how do people search.
Wow.
Then you have coders who come in and say, okay, this is somebody searches, then here's how I code to that.
Right.
So it's just so critical to understand that. A lot of writing has gone around about humanities and liberal arts majors, and again, it really just comes down to what skills am I getting out of that. One of the every single Sunday in the New York Times in the business section, Adam Bryant writes a column called The Corner Office. And he interviews CEOs about their leadership style, their organizational culture, where their leadership style came from, their early on experiences. And he ends the column with, how do you hire? What interview questions do you ask? And what is your advice for college students? It's an incredibly insightful look into how companies operate and how CEOs think about their employees and how they hire. And it is rarely about your major. It is always about your skill.
Wow.
Always.
Now, can you talk about some other, because I would think students are going to have a hard time identifying exactly what they are getting out of, their majors.
Right.
Do you have any tips about that, or even maybe some more examples of different majors and what kind of skills they might be developing?
Yeah, so think about even the history major. So companies are companies are brands. If you think about it, Coca-Cola is a brand. You buy Coca-Cola because of its image, the things that it invokes inside of you. So they're telling stories. A lot of that comes from their archives. What was the history of Coca-Cola? That's the role of the historian, who is archiving that, developing that story, working with writers to develop that story. That's an important part of a company's legacy. So for historians, it's not, yes, if you want to become a teacher, great, go get your PhD. But in practical use, it can be applied to that whole world of marketing and communication. So as a historian, you're learning how to research, you're learning how to write. So one of the primary skills that employers look for young kids is this ability to communicate, verbally as well as written. So we're very used to, writing in code now. We text, we abbreviate everything, and that's fine in some instances. But learning how to craft your story, learning how to be concise. Procter & Gamble, since the early 70s, has one model that they have lived by with their internal communication. If you can't say it in a page, you don't say it.
Wow.
So learn how to condense things down to what is most important. And you can learn that in almost every single degree or every single major that you're working with, because you're doing a fair amount of writing. Be concise, get your message across. Persuasive communication is the terminology that employers are using. So that's a key piece of it. We look at the world in terms of technology, and everybody thinks technology is coding and those algorithms that go along with that. And that's certainly part of it. But technology companies also are publicly traded, so you need investor relations people, you need PR people, you need marketing people, you need human resources people. All of these are things that you can gain. So sociology major, the psychology major, the anthropology major are ideal majors that give you the skills to work inside of a company in human resources. Your company is only as good as the people that you hire. It's not necessarily your code, but it's the people that you hire. So human resources are about understanding people, interviewing people, handling the conflict that happens in the workplace. So where could you possibly learn conflict resolution skills? Lots of places that you could do that. The history major, the sociology major, the anthropology major. So it's hard to understand when you're in college how those relate. But that's how employers are looking at you. They're looking at, that skill. And is this somebody I'm going to have to micromanage? Or is this somebody because of what they've done in school, the research project, the club that they're now president of, were motivated, initiated, led a team of people? It says a lot about you. Team sports, whether you're at a Division I school or Division III, or you play intramural club sports. That team orientation is how companies are working. And you don't have to be the leader of a team, but you do need to understand your role on a team. And if the Olympics are on, you watch the Olympics, you see that sportsmanship in the teams, the swim team and the gymnastic team. They compete with each other, but they also know how to operate as a team really well together. Think about those skills, those projects that you're working on as a team. What's your role? When you're doing that marketing project, what did you do? What was your contribution? How did you resolve the conflicts in that? How did you communicate with each other? Who was responsible for putting all those tasks together? All of this are the things that you're learning in school, but if you think this is about your major, then you're missing the real point.
Because everybody, there's a million, English majors or econ majors or
Right.
whatever, you know, it's like, how do you differ from all these other people who are
Right.
just identifying themselves by their major,
Right.
which doesn't say anything about who they are or how they can help
Right.
this company.
When you and I were in college, if you were an English major, you went to New York and you worked in a publishing house and you became an editor. Pretty much how it worked. There's no real linear path anymore. The world isn't linear. And the world is problems that we have to solve are too complex. So you need the person who can think really critically. You need the person who's analytical. You need the person who has the softer skills of understanding human behavior. All working on a team to solve those complex problems.
Yeah. One other thing I want to ask you, because I know, like you said, communication skills is so important, but I know that in a lot of schools, particularly universities where you have very large classes, you don't have an opportunity to do much writing. How do people improve their writing skills, or even their speaking skills, if they're just in a lot of lecture halls?
Yeah, and that is a problem in some of those larger universities. So the University of Miami, for example, part of their core curriculum is taking a full year of writing and oral speaking. You can learn that in a number of different places. So again, if you are in a club and or a sorority or a fraternity, you're in a leadership role, you're learning how to stand up and communicate in front of your peers. So you can develop those skills that way. But if you can't get it in a big lecture, you have to find other courses to do that. And every school has public speaking courses. There may be a 1-credit course, but it still would be a valuable course for you to take, or to find a club or an organization in which you can do that. Really critical, and use that then in your internship. Find opportunities in your internship to make a presentation to your boss. And a lot of internships now do that at the end of the summer. They give their interns, in addition to their work that they are responsible for, they give them a project to do as a group of interns. And at the end of that, they present it to the senior leadership team. So you're getting those skills that way too. But I have had pre-med clients who haven't written anything since high school.
Wow.
Because it's all problem solving, it's all mathematical,
Right.
Solve this, problem. So it is very, very challenging for them even to write their med school application,
Wow.
which has about 10 essays.
Wow. That's a lot of essays.
It's a lot of essays. A lot of them are repetitive, but there are a lot of essays. And if you feel like you're lacking that, again, career services is a place that can help you.
Right. Okay, great. Well, thanks, Jane, for this great advice on skills versus majors. I know people certainly learned something today about that.
Great, thank you, Lynn.
Thanks.